turning your hobby, your passion, into another source of income. It's the dream. We all want to do it. But can you do it with reptiles? Well, today, I'm going to teach you the top 5 ways that you can make money with reptiles. I'm Adam. This is Pikachu. You're watching Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. Now, before I start this, I want to say everything on this list I want you to do responsibly, if you choose to do it. We'll go into more detail about this, and this is by no means a get-rich-quick guide. A lot of these things take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and most of them aren't that lucrative in the first place, but if you can make enough money to make your hobby free, well, that's pretty cool. That's what I want to do. Number 5, and the easiest one of all, work for somebody. Be an assistant, be an employee. This could be something as simple as working at a reptile store, your dedicated reptile store in your area, or maybe it's something like you work at a breeding facility, like you see a bunch of the employees on Brian Barchuk's channel, what they do, where you can clean tubs and feed the reptiles and maybe even get to socialize the reptiles, something like that. This is something that you're not gonna have to worry about getting a college degree or a university degree for. And you know what? That's a stipulation for all of these things. Everything I'm gonna talk about is something that you can do with passion, with drive, and with knowledge, but it doesn't mean you need to spend 6 figures on schooling. So this is probably the most simple one because you don't have to actually create anything yourself. You literally just show up to work. I mean, finding the job in the first place might be hard. If you live in like a metro hub, like a Toronto, a Houston, an LA, somewhere where there's a lot of people, there's probably gonna be some reptile people and reptile businesses, so it'll be a little bit easier. Where I live, there are 2 different reptile shops in my area. I've never worked for either one of them. I've really never done any reptile work for anybody else, where I was their employee, volunteering, helping people when they're on vacation, things like that. That's different. And of course, we could lump that in there if you know somebody who, needs their reptile taken care of while they're on vacation. Well, that's pretty simple. You're not going to make money that way, but you could turn that into something where you work for yourself, and kind of how there's dog sitters and dog walkers, you can be the reptile walker and sitter. Don't sit on your reptiles. And then maybe you get somebody who needs you to start working with rare or more difficult reptiles, and you can gain a lot of skills this way. So if you want to move on to one of the next 4 things, this could be the perfect jump off, the perfect starting point. So for example, maybe you start and you're cleaning tubs. You're literally cleaning poop out of tubs. And then you get to start feeding the reptiles, and then they need somebody to start socializing, the monitors or the big pythons or whatever, so that they can be used for an educational program or for a handling animal or whatever. The possibilities aren't endless, but there is room to grow, and this could be something where, although you're probably not going to get rich doing this, you can at least make somewhat of a living, and you could probably make a decent living doing this for a large-scale breeder. Now, number 4, and one of the things where watching people that are professionals at this got me interested in reptiles when I was a little kid, education. When I was a kid, our librarian at school, Mrs. Corvino, I remember, her husband had, I don't know if it was a sanctuary, but he definitely ran educational programs. He'd bring in sulcata tortoises and python, like all these cool things that, at 5 or 6 years old, and when I was in kindergarten, I didn't know what these things were. And I think although I say, well, I love dinosaurs, and then I started watching Steve Irwin, it was probably that was the one thing that made me realize, wow, these things are absolutely amazing. And my first exposure to a real life snake and a real life lizard and a real life tortoise. So you could be that. Imagine if you, at however old you are, a grown adult or darn near, you have this passion, right? What if you can give that same passion or help a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old gain that similar passion that you have? What if you can be the guy to inspire? Or girl. Girls can inspire too. What if you're the person that inspires? And this is something that you can do with somebody else, so it kind of goes into number 1, being an employee or an assistant, and you probably want to start that way or not want to, but you could start that way, being the assistant to somebody who runs a program. I know sometimes in the US, southern US, humane societies have these educational programs. They get a lot more reptiles in, people release them all the time, invasive species, and there's just a bigger population than up here in the Great White North, which is actually like 75 degrees today, so all right, thanks for coming, Mr. Spring, appreciate that. Or maybe you've got a bunch of experience. I don't want to put a number on it. I have about, a little over a decade of experience, and this is something I want to do. I want to get enough experience with enough animals and have enough animals that are socialized enough that I could go back to that same elementary school where I learned about my love for reptiles, and maybe I can give presentations there. Or maybe I can do birthday parties, corporate parties, whatever. That is a dream of mine eventually down the road to do, but for now, I mean, we'll get into what I do for money with reptiles, but I think this is probably the most pure and the best cause for reptiles. Of course, there's running sanctuaries and things like that. That won't make the list because it's just so difficult to start one up and takes so much time and capital. But in terms of this list, which is the best for society and the most giving back on the list, this is probably it. So number 4, go out there and start educating people with reptiles and make a couple bucks when you do it. Number 3, and this is the most obvious on the list for sure, breeding reptiles. Yeah, so this is, everyone jumps into this, or not everyone, a lot of people jump into this very prematurely. They don't realize what it takes. They buy these little babies and think, well, in 2 years I can just produce, I'll get my money back. Nah, you won't. That's not how it works. For example, you guys saw 2 weeks ago or last week or whenever it was, this video here about hognose snakes. I had 9 beautiful babies out of 18 eggs, so that's 50% hatch rate. We'll go on more into that in a second. I bought those baby hognose snakes that I eventually grew up and bred in 2016. It's 2020. So it took me 4 years to get both of them to breeding size. And the female was ready last year, but the male wasn't because he was a slow eater. So yes, hognose snakes, although males can be breeding size within a year, this guy, he just was smaller and didn't want to breed last year. Luckily, I had a different animal. I had a different hognose snake who did breed, but it wasn't really the money clutch like we got this year. And that's the thing. If you're looking to make money and you want to recoup your investment, whatever the animals that you bought are, you're going to have to produce some similar animals and hope the market stays at a place where those animals will still sell for a similar type of dollar value, a similar type of money value in order to get your money back. Now, this could get really complicated and we could do a whole video. If you want me to do a whole video about the ins and outs of breeding and how to make money doing it, throw it in the comment section below. Spoiler alert, I haven't made tons of money breeding. I've recouped my investments, but I haven't really made much else. Because if you think about it, if you buy a house, that's another way that people make money. You buy a house, you do some work, you wait a couple years, it appreciates, and then you sell it, or you remortgage and you get some money. With snakes, it doesn't really work like that. You gotta feed them, and sometimes snakes, just like all other animals, including humans, get ailments. They get sick, and sometimes they die. Or even if they don't die, they get sick and they can't breed. Or they just go off food and then they don't want to breed. Or they can breed, but they produce infertile offspring. Or don't produce eggs at all. Or the eggs go full term and just, they don't incubate properly, even though everything else you see what I mean? There's a million problems that can happen with breeding. But with that said, enough of the negative Nancy, you can make money. A lot of capital up front. Because here's the thing. Sometimes people will go out and buy the cheapest snakes they can find, breed them together, and then they can't sell them. Because there's a million normal ball pythons out there. And that's the thing I would recommend too. If you're getting into breeding and you want to breed ball pythons, don't expect to make any money unless you're going to spend some money. Because everybody and their brother is producing pastels and spiders, and probably maybe you shouldn't be breeding spiders anyway, and normals and pinstripes and like all these things that have been around forever. I'm not saying don't do it, but if you want to make the money, you got to spend some money up front. This is getting really boring. Do you get the idea? It's hard to make money when you're breeding. And 2 more things. The market's going to change. So for example, I got lucky. Albinos have been around forever. So I bought Pikachu here, and I bought Medusa, his mate, who is gravid right now. And I bought them in 2016. They were both breeding size, but just chose not to breed the last 3 years. Finally did this year. And I bought them both for, I think it was $200 each, or $400 for the pair. I'll get my money back because albinos still sell for $200 to $300 to $400 sometimes in my area. But sometimes the market changes. Piebalds, for example, they hold steady, which is really great. But spiders, imagine you bought spiders 5 years ago for $200 and then now you can't sell them because nobody wants them. That'd be a real bummer, right? So make sure that if you are spending lots of money, you do your research and figure out what's holding steady, what there's demand for. And that's the other thing too, demand comes and goes. Mexican black king snakes back in the day were worth nothing. People stopped breeding them because they were worth nothing. Now, if you find one for $500, you scoop it up in a heartbeat and there's barely enough demand. Same thing with Dumerils boas. Western hognose snakes, that's where I'm making most of the money that I'm actually profiting, is because Western hognose, in my area at least, their value is actually going up. So the ones that I bought in 2016, I can sell for the same price, their offspring, the babies that they made, or more, because there's very high demand and there's low supply. So that's the thing. You just got to do a little bit of research. Don't rush into it is what I'm trying to say, and make sure you have enough space, because a breeding project expands really quick. Really, really quick. Make sure you have space. Number 2, social media. So things like Instagram and YouTube, of course. And the way that we make money is, for example, you will watch an ad just now, unless you have your ad blocker on. Now this might be the most difficult to start and the slowest growing and the most frustrating thing that you can do, because there are people who started at the same time as me who still don't have a following enough that they can even monetize. And there's people who start at the same time as me who have a huge following, way bigger than my following. So it's kind of, what you get out of it, what you put into it, but it also takes a lot of luck. So it's something that you really have to dedicate yourself to, and it's something that is a 24/7 type of job if you want to be successful. So not just YouTube, but also say Instagram, for example. You got to make sure that you've got new content all the time. It's not as simple as snapping a picture and throwing it up there. Do you know how to use Lightroom? Do you know how to use Photoshop? Do you know the right hashtags? Do you know how to find out what the right it's kind of a game, right? Social media is a game. A lot of people don't take it seriously. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, whether you believe in social media or not, or you laugh at people who make their money on Instagram or whatever else, there is 2 things you got to be good at. Whatever it is that your channel's about. Reptiles. I have to know about reptiles. I have to be able to breed them because some of the content's on there. I have to know how to keep them properly, otherwise you guys will roast me in the comments section and I won't have a following anymore. Things like that. But also, do you know how to shoot videos? Do you know how to light videos? Do you know how to get good audio? Do you know how to edit? That's the thing. There's a second learning curve. So if this is you and you want to start a YouTube channel, if you want to start an Instagram account where you'll get a big enough following that advertisers will advertise on your account, do you know how to do all these things? The answer is probably no. Are you willing to learn? That's me. I didn't know anything about this. I knew a little bit about editing from 10 years ago in high school, but Premiere's changed a lot since then. What I'm trying to say here is, it's not easy, but I'm not trying to demotivate you. If you want to make money with reptiles on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, you can. You just have to be very dedicated to learning that second skill set, maintaining the one that you already have, and just being a good ambassador for these animals. Because if you're going to be someone who buys a bunch of animals, starts breeding them and hoarding them, and a bunch of them die, it's not going to go well for you, first of all, and second of all, you give the rest of us a bad name. So maybe in the future, when I've got a bigger following and I can say that my channel is successful, I'll make a video all about this. If you'd like that, throw it in the comments section, but otherwise, my life is so hard. Number 1, and probably the one that is safest for reptiles for you to do to make money off of reptiles, is supply sales. So instead of selling reptiles, this is something that you can have a personal collection, or maybe some animals that you use to display the products, but you don't need to have a ton of animals. It's just selling substrates, selling enclosures, or building racks. This is something that, you need a second skill set, of course, but your first skill set doesn't have to be crazy. If you look at a Chihuahua gecko and a crested gecko or a gargoyle gecko, and you can't tell from 50 feet away which is which, no one's gonna care. As long as you can build an 18 by 18 by 24 enclosure properly, or you can outfit it properly, and you know the requirements for New Caledonian geckos in that case, then you're good. You can recommend products and you can sell products. The thing is, this is a business-minded type thing. The way to be successful here, the bio dude is who comes up to my mind. No, he doesn't sponsor me or even know who I am probably, but the bio dude is one of those guys where when I was thinking about how can I turn this passion into money of some sort, just even if it's a little bit of cash, I thought about the reptile supply. But being in Canada, the supply chain is much more difficult to navigate. Most everything is made in the US, bringing it up here, and by the time you sell it, it doesn't work. So if you're in the US especially, or this works in the UK too, because you don't have a giant country right beside you who takes all of your market, this could work really well for you, right? Shipping's very easy within the continental US most of the time, and the UK as well. So this is something that if you've got a good business mind and you understand supply chain and you understand how to buy things and sell them properly, if you've got any sort of idea how to run a business like that and logistics, and you can figure out how to ship stuff, this is basically me just saying the same thing over and over. This is something that is a business-minded thing more than how to take care of reptiles thing. And you don't have to have a million reptiles to make it work. So there you go. Top 5 ways that you can make money with reptiles. What do you think? Did I forget something? Is there something that I forgot? Should there be a part 2 of all the things that I forgot? Do you disagree with what I said? I took the idea for this video into the comment section below, like all the videos that I do. So maybe next week we can do your video idea. Put it in the comment section below. As always, a special thank you to the Patreon supporters. Because of you guys, I can go and buy a bunch of mice and rats for guys like this, so we can produce little babies, so I can make videos about them. Coming soon. And of course, all the rest of you, everybody who watches, thank you so much. I sit here like an idiot in my basement talking to a camera, and you guys watch. The luckiest guy ever. So if you haven't already, smash subscribe, hit the like button. I'd really appreciate it. And because I do videos twice a week, that means that I'll see you on Thursday.